Halloween Kills is the third installment in the new retconned Halloween canon. Starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Judy Greer, and the entire town of Haddonfield, Illinois. This movie puts the Shape, Michael Myers, the boogeyman himself, against an angry mob, an incompetent police force, and a handful of Haddonfield families. Much like the original Halloween 2, Halloween Kills takes place on the same night as the 2018 Halloween, which is now, of course, a direct sequel to 1978's Halloween. This story sees Michael Myers somehow escaping his fate from the previous movie to return home, terrorizing the city of Haddonfield. Generally speaking, this was not a great movie. I enjoyed certain parts of the experience. There were callbacks, Easter eggs, and a few scenes that were entertaining at the very least. Sometimes entertaining, maybe not for the intended purpose, not for the director's or editor's intended purpose, I should say. There were some bad enough to be funny parts. There were some honestly good parts. There were some good effects. The music was great most of the time, and Laurie Strode was still Laurie Strode. So that's the good, I guess. The bad is that this was really a derivative movie, if you ask me. There's no point to it. This feels like a side quest in an open world game. Didn't really add much to the lore at all, and I don't think it achieved the intended result. So before we get into the nitpicks and spoil this whole thing from beginning to end, let me just say now that if you haven't seen this movie and you are already subscribed to Peacock, I would say go ahead and give it a watch. Especially if you're a fan of the series, you will see some familiar faces and hear some recognizable names. So there is some addition to the lore, but it doesn't feel meaningful. So if you're a completionist, if you're the type of collector who has to have everything, or the person who plays through an Arkham Knight game and gets all the Riddler trophies, then maybe go ahead and watch this. But if you're just a regular guy or gal who's not really keen to this Halloween thing, I would say absolutely do not pay a theater price to see this. And if you must watch it, try to borrow a buddy's Peacock login. You have been warned. Going further, we are in Spoiler Town. First off, this kid who just left a voicemail is now screaming for help in the street and not calling 911. So we're off to a great start. The flashback brings us back a little bit with the great score and a shitty jump scare. But I do love the nod to Loomis shot him multiple times. No, he shot him 6 times. He shot him 6 times. Speaking of Loomis, we're given another hit of that sweet, sweet nostalgia as Lonnie becomes a focus of a scene. Lonnie, get your ass away from there. Sorry, my Donald Pleasance is horrible, but fun little use of Lonnie, then promptly ruined by another cheap jump scare in the Strode household. Love the dead dog bit though, which it's a weird sentence. I'm not happy that to have said that sentence. While we're still on the Loomis topic, Not a great Loomis impersonation, but it's big boots to fill. So 5 out of 10 on that part. And then we're back after a very long opening credits scene, which at least includes the wonderful Halloween theme. We're back in 2018 at a talent show where some old guy decides he's gonna tell the story of Michael Myers in a talent show. So, yay. Man, they are just playing all of the hits here. Tommy Doyle is the one telling the story so fittingly at the talent show. After a smooth transition to Laurie, we find ourselves finally back with the modern day Shape. And he's presented more like a supervillain here. He goes up against a team of admittedly firefighters. There's some horror element to the initial kill, we'll say 2 kills. But then it's 3 firefighters with an axe, or maybe 2 with an axe and 1 with the saw. I know there's a saw in play. And he kind of like CQCs these bad boys in a slow Frankenstein-esque motion. Very interesting to watch, but not necessarily the elements that made Halloween such a memorable franchise. Okay, the Sandra scene. This is our next big Michael Myers murder spree, and this is closer to the classic Shape of old. But the scenes are brighter. There's a lot more lights, which of course some of those lights come into play, as you know. And it's more heavily, as this series progressively became, it's more heavily involved with the gore than they were early on, which is totally fine. I get it's almost the point of continuing to remake and revisit and revise, whatever, these franchises, to do now what you maybe couldn't have done back then. So I get the gore, and it makes sense. And the long lingering shot that shows you poor old Sandra's still alive as Mikey tests out his knives on her husband's back. Oof. Well done. That scene in particular gets a check mark. We check back in with the talent show to be introduced to Chekhov's baseball bat named Huckleberry, and a nice slow zoom on Tommy Doyle as Lonnie goes to pick up his kid, who I did not realize was the father of Laurie's granddaughter's current ex-boyfriend in the timeline. Maybe I missed that in the first one. I watched the first one multiple times, but admittedly, it wasn't a memorable experience. There's a couple of scenes that stick out, and so far, a couple of those have already been revisited in this second one, namely the kid getting stuck on the gate. Michael Myers sticking him on the gate. But excuse my tangent, but that's a detail I might have missed from the first one, but didn't realize how involved Lonnie was going to be in this movie, and it's cracking me up. All the nostalgia, all the member berries. This sort of feels like Aliens to Alien so far, where it seems more of like it's going to be more of an action-driven Busta Rhymes versus Michael Myers sort of experience. As if on cue, we see Tommy Doyle finally grab Huckleberry Bat, which, honestly, I was expecting a little more time in between showing us the bat and having him actually wield it. I was also hoping the bar owner himself would wield it since it was his bat, but the vibe I'm getting from Tommy as of this point is that he is some like deranged lunatic himself, which could be a very cool story thread to be unraveling as we go. But the music they play, it's not very heroic when he's coming out with the baseball bat, and just the way he's holding it, you know that character really deems himself a badass, and in some sense he kind of is, but it's interesting to say the least. And there's that scene where they are ganging up on the other person that escaped from the asylum, whom they think to be Mike Myers. And now the mob has been sufficiently stirred up, so I continue to believe in my previous Aliens claim, but it looks like with Big John and Little John, we are headed back to another classic, or classic-ish, Michael Myers scene. So far, the worst part about this movie is that it's going to make me have to go watch the other one again to be reminded if certain story arcs have been forgotten, or maybe I misinterpreted them. As the police are interviewing the different Strode women about what happened, Laurie's daughter, Karen, whom I interpreted had a story arc in the last movie of forgiveness and acceptance or something along those lines when it came to her mother, right? She hated her mother who had raised her and taught her how to shoot and hunt and kill and protect herself, and that the boogeyman was real. And then lo and behold, the boogeyman is real, and we have a generational standoff against Michael Myers, and the three women come together and they beat the boogeyman. But now that we're back in this movie, she's blaming everything on her mother. Her mother knew the boogeyman was real, and he came to her house, and thus Laurie put all of them in the path of that madman, and this is all her fault. Which just seems shitty and stupid to me. The entire point of a sequel is to continue a story, which clearly in almost every other aspect, this is, I mean, it's the same night. They're doing Halloween 2 again, right? The first Halloween 2 doesn't exist, and now they're doing it again by having the sequel take place in the same night. No real issues. We're at the 11th movie in this franchise. It's hard to get too nitpicky about originality. However, something that I cannot stand in sequels is when a story arc that was completed, some character growth that was witnessed, that we were all part of in movie 1, is then discarded and thrown out the window because you didn't think deeply enough about that character and what he or she represents, and just don't know enough about them to create a new story arc for that character. So you have to go back to the old one, and then we'll work through this whole thing again. So that is admittedly annoying. Hopefully I'm misinterpreting it at this point in the movie. Nothing makes you take back a cheater like the impending doom of a knife-wielding shape. Am I right, fellas and ladies? But seriously, I understand her father just died, but the idea that she's going to go out into a mob and extract what I will call Texas justice upon old Mikey is ridiculous. I'll accept it as character bad decision. One of the worst parts of any horror franchise is that often enough, when you're dealing with putting characters in danger in a world that has Wi-Fi, and cell phones, you often are required to have characters make very stupid decisions, and this is one of them. But at least to give the movie some credit at some point throughout this runtime, it makes sense to me that a teenager whose father was murdered by someone would actually want to join a posse and take their vengeance. So it makes sense. The weird part, the part that I don't understand and feels ham-fisted is, why are you having the ex-boyfriend be the one? There were no other teenagers. Allison had no other friends that the movie could have utilized. I mean, it seems that every character in this movie is someone that pre-existed. So maybe that's why. Maybe they really, really just want to hammer home these connections to Lonnie and Allison, and maybe there's a point to it, is what I'm getting at. Maybe there's a reason that they're really focusing on these, 3 or 4 families that were heavily impacted. He kept saying infected, by the way. He being, still don't remember the idiot's name, but Lonnie's son, Allison's boyfriend. We'll fix it in post. That idiot, it makes no sense to me. I would think the day your father died, I didn't realize the murder of your father would make you susceptible to take back someone who you had just rightfully kicked out of your life for cheating only a couple hours ago. But hey, at the end of the day, trauma is trauma, and it's excusable. So why am I still on such a long fucking tangent about it? I don't know. Let's move on. Oof. The posse roundup scene hits like a punch in the gut, and not in a good way whatsoever. I've said it before, and I will briefly say it again. The only reason bad acting exists is because a bad director looked at a scene and said, "That's it, we got it, moving on." How anyone looked at this scene, and I'm assuming there were multiple takes, how anyone looked at this scene and said, "Yes, that's it, that's golden, baby, we're moving on," is beyond me. I have no understanding of this. It's the lines are either poorly written or incredibly poorly ad-libbed, and I tend to believe they were written because the delivery is so wooden that I hesitate to believe that any of these actors came up with that off the cuff. It would sound more natural. It wouldn't be as flat. But that dialogue is crap. The reasoning Cameron, which is his name, Allison's, I guess now re-boyfriend. He's the return of the boyfriend. Halloween Kills, Return of the Boyfriend, coming to you in IMAX. He is back with his dad and Tommy. His dad cracks some stupid bait joke when he's pulling up the guns. I understand the formula for modern horror films, which is not really new. This has been part of it for 40 years now. Moments of levity and comedy are in there. This scene's just bad at it with the attempt. Just a shot and a miss, and they took their shot. There's more humor in Tommy Doyle's dialogue. Allison joins, but what's particularly egregious to me is right before Allison runs down is the Humvee or Jeep, whatever the hell it was, the Range Rover that pulls up, and it's got our doctor-nurse couple from the talent show scene, and one of the survivors. I can't remember her name now, but her babysitter was one of the original victims in the first movie, and she hops out of the car and says to them, "I can't let you have all the fun." And this is what I'm getting at, what I was talking about earlier with Tommy. The vigilante crowd, and I think it's being done on purpose, and I really hope, fighting through my low expectations for this movie, to hope that there is an interesting message behind the mob. I imagine the mob is going to take things too far, make a mistake, possibly kill that other asylum inmate that's escaped, or someone else who's innocent, and that Allison will see the error of her ways for joining this crazy mob, and when she gets home to the hospital or wherever to protect her grandmother, she'll get there either just in the nick of time or just late, and she'll be the one to finally kill Michael Myers. But I'm off on a tangent. We are back at the scene I was bitching about. So, the doctor and nurse, their reasoning is that it happened in their neighborhood. We thought we could help. I guess I'm fine with it. But it's just weird to have everyone go in a circle and explain your reasons for wanting to join. It's not very natural to you writers out there. A note, if you will. Your dialogue should serve one of three purposes. It should move the plot forward somehow, some way. It should provide an insight into one or both of the characters, or it should provide some context, some behind the scenes, basically exposition, that's what I'm getting at, but you know, that's why it's three, because let's not do that very often. If the only thing dialogue is providing is that exposition, your goal as a writer or as a filmmaker should be to come up with a better way, a more entertaining way, if you will, to have that information brought across. It's really the last option that you want to use. So I get maybe why the decision was made to cram this all into one scene and have like a posse gang up scene, everybody grab your weapons, let's suit up kind of deal. But that's already kind of a bad scene when you think about it. It's kind of cliche, kind of lame. So at the very least, you got to make sure that the acting is good and that the writing isn't complete shit. So once again, I've spent way too much time on a nitpick, so moving on. As we go through the round up the town scene, I'm again annoyed by the combination of new to the lore characters and the throwbacks, because what the movie is doing, what the writers and directors have chosen to do, is have the old folks just constantly explaining things that happened in the first movie. I don't understand why movies do this. I don't get what the point is. If you're trying to bring in new viewers, why would you think you would need to answer every question and provide all the context? You've already shown Loomis. You showed him within the first 5 minutes of the movie. It's okay if you're doing what is currently considered as a third installment, right? This is the end of your trilogy because you're pretending that the other movies don't exist. They're no longer canon. Heard. We're playing along. We're right there with you, pal. This is the third movie in your trilogy. Why is it not okay for some of the questions an audience member may have as they're watching only the third movie in a trilogy? Why isn't it okay for them to just have to go back to the first movie to get those answers? Why do movies and creators feel that they have to answer questions or fill in gaps that that aren't gaps? This is a continuation. This is a part 3. I understand that you want to get people to watch who didn't watch part 2, but I don't understand why you're catering to people who didn't watch your first 2 movies rather than catering the experience, or focusing it more on those who are here, who've been here, the ones who paid all the money to make it worth your while to make this movie again. I don't understand. Cater your movie to the people who've watched the other movies. And the new people, if they're here, they're not here because other new people were like, you know what, it was so good. They explained the complete lore. They explained so much backstory to me in this Michael Myers movie that, you know, I feel totally caught up. I'm so glad there was so much talking in my Michael Myers movie. It was fantastic. That's not why they're here. They're here because they saw a trailer and they liked it. So what does it matter if there are a few background characters, if First of all, just cut out the scene where she says no one believed him. Who? No one believed who? Dr. Loomis. He was Michael's first doctor. He knew a murderer when he saw one. What value did you just add? That's all that was in that scene. And then the next thing you know, so it showed that they were driving to a park. We knew they were driving. We had already seen them recruit multiple people. There is no point for that scene other than to mention Dr. Loomis again. I don't know. Another frickin' 3-minute tangent about 15 seconds of this film that just drove me nuts. Apologies. I do love a good eye kill, though. Fantastic effect there. Looked pretty good. It was nice and dark, so if it wasn't perfect, easy to hide. But that scene is more of what most of us are here for. So good job, movie, so far. Now we have just a ton of people firing. No, I shouldn't say a ton. We've got 2 different people. Mary and the other lady just constantly firing shots at Michael and missing, wasting the ammo. So again, we still got people just being dumb, but this is more of the stalking, you know, when the unhumanly, it's the shape, man, when the guy's trying to choke Michael Myers out and he just turns and looks at him and shoves a knife in his eye. That's fantastic. That's what we're here for, man. Like that car door kill, I mean, it's trying. It's trying to get its points back here, movie. All right. Goddamn, movie. I was just giving you a little pickup, and then in the very next scene, you're gonna have Karen pick up Laurie's bloody shirt, which we in the audience all know contains a giant fucking chef's knife. And you expect me to believe, because the plot needs it, that she picks up that shirt as she says, I can't believe they just leave your bloody shirt here, and doesn't notice that there's a fucking knife in her hand as she's throwing it away? I mean, guys, that's a bit of a stretch. I know we're doing a movie about a 6'8", 65-year-old who somehow feels no pain and can get shot 20 times, but I mean, 6 times! I shot him 6 times! But this, right here, this is what breaks my suspension of disbelief. Come on, guys, you're killing me. The legend of Lonnie continues to grow as we learn about his days buying peyote from Allison's father. That was a bit of levity that I did enjoy. Another one that maybe only idiots like me who are combing through these things might have noticed and taken some joy from, but did you see Tommy Doyle's car? It's some old beat up red Chevrolet where the hood doesn't match the rest of the car. It's black or gray or something. And it just got me thinking about that character in general. And it seems like this Tommy Doyle has lived for this moment. He's just been ready for something like this. For him to, you know, be important. He kind of seems like a guy who's been waiting for his time to shine, and this is it. Hasn't really had much else going on, and so now being the neighborhood vigilante is right up his alley. But see, this is stuff like this being in this movie is what frustrates me so much, because did you see what we were just able to pull out of these small details? You know, a little bit of the way the music is played, the way Tommy has held his bat, the way his car looks, the way he talks to people. He sounds like he's some kind of drill sergeant. These are all subtle little character traits that within an hour of a movie, we've now, whether right or wrong, we've interpreted a character. We have some range to this guy. We know who this guy is. It didn't have to be explained to us by some other character. So it frustrates me to see a movie that clearly knows how, or I should say at least the people behind a movie that clearly know how this stuff works and can do it well at times. They show flashes. This is the most frustrating part. It makes the really stupid stuff hurt you that much more because you're thinking, why couldn't you guys just put more effort? You clearly have the ability to do better than this. Why aren't you? Did Michael hang Mary to the swing with a Halloween 3 Season of the Witch mask on her? What an Easter egg. The scene itself overall is cool. The logic, again, it's one of my favorite things about the character of Michael Myers. He's a shape, right? He's no fear, no emotion, no feeling, but he loves to just set up his bodies all artistically. That's his muse, his flame. But I mean, it gets the desired impact, and it looks cool. So I don't have any real beef with it. The way he sets these bodies up and puts the masks on the characters. I don't know when he necessarily would have had time for it. The movie seemed to imply that he walked away by crossing that bridge and leaving the only survivor there. So I don't know when he had time to do all of this stuff, but it certainly looks cool. And what a nice throwback to, honestly, what we now look back on as probably one of the better Halloween movies, even though it didn't have Michael Myers in it. I take issue with this idea and the scene of building a relationship for Laurie between her and Frank. I get that this was a small town and a lot of these people would be connected, but this doesn't need to, not everyone doesn't need to be so interwoven. This isn't a quilt that your aunt made you. This is a damn movie. Let it just be a movie. You don't have to explain everything. They don't need to have this sordid history for this to be important. They both got stabbed by the same madman. That is enough for now for the sake of this story. That's enough to get them forward. We don't need them to have some ships passing in the night. Oh, we totally should have banged 20 years ago, but we didn't. We don't need any of that right now. It's unnecessary filler for my slashy movie, and I don't like it. And most importantly, scene. I will have you know that there is no way that in past her 50s, Laurie Strode, who was just stabbed in the stomach, would be laying on her side with her knees up in an L-like shape. I get it. I'm picking all the nits here, folks, but I mean, continuity's kind of a big deal. You know, if you're going to get paid to make movies, so you should be paying attention to stuff like this. I mean, I'm just saying, it's, it is what it is. It's fitting for this movie that former Chief Brackett is part of the riling up of the Horde as these guys start chanting "Evil dies tonight in a hospital." I found it equally egregious, the idea that as Tommy was fighting through a group of people, he decided to turn back and yell to the crowd, "Evil dies tonight," which is of course what started the chant. The whole thing's pretty schlocky. It's kind of funny. I can easily see that there is part of this movie that's attempting that aesthetic. They want it to feel like a cheesy 80s movie, or what I have seen more recently in the last 2 decades, it almost feels like more of a modern day indie horror thriller. Like it has Hobo with a Shotgun vibes, VFW vibes, just those with certain things like the close-ups of the bat and the way the synth music comes in. Of course, those aspects have existed for a while, but it's been a part of recent indie horror culture to play upon that stuff and purposely make things, I guess, more Evil Dead-like for just again, this stuff is cyclical, so it's been around before. It's relevant again, and Halloween Kills is meeting them in the middle there, doing things that could be perceived as throwback, but also things that are happening frequently now in movies that have been made in the last few years that are going for that throwback approach. So it's got certain shots, like with the Little John's eyes getting gouged out and stuff like that, that really give you that this is purposely over the top and purposely looks not realistic, which is funny again considering where this franchise started, seeing how much gore is involved in these movies. It's interesting to see. Yep, called it. Not that it was difficult to see, but the mob, of course, is responsible for the death of an innocent person. At least it's painted as a much more innocent than Michael Myers' person. Karen, I'm sorry. So what now, Tommy? You're just gonna sit there and feel sorry for yourself? No. I've got to keep trying. But if I go down, I'm gonna go down swinging. You imagine that sounded pretty good to whoever wrote it, but this is why you should always do table reads. Another note for my aspiring writers in the audience: just having a character acknowledge how dumb a thing is that they did or potentially said isn't some sort of waiver or release that then washes away the stupidity of the choice made by the character, or in essence, you, the creator. So it frustrates me to no end to see a character do something stupid. Case in point, Lonnie bringing his children to Michael Myers' home without any backup, just the three of them. How hard would it have been to convince the two of them, let's go get the posse? Remember that posse we spent most of this movie loosely forming? Let's go get those guys and say, hey, he's at the Myers house, let's go fight him. But no. Lonnie takes two teenagers with him to Michael Myers' house, and then only once he is parked in front of the house does he acknowledge this. But fear not, dear viewer, because Lonnie composes himself and has the wherewithal to say, hey, I'm still in the car, I still have the keys, let's drive to the hospital, or let's call Tommy Doyle because cell phones exist, and let's let him know about our big discovery and see if we can't get some strength in numbers before we go attack Michael Myers. Wrong. Nope, he just says, y'all two sit in here and honk the horn if something goes bad. Right. Okay then, moving on. And it is now time to run the final girl circuit. And Allison, I know that this hurts right now. It's hard to watch a serial killer just break your boyfriend or ex-boyfriend's neck in front of you. But, you know, the guy was a cheater, so you're probably better off. Oh, these writers. Danny McBride, was this you, man? Did you do this? You do this to me? Fucking A. So we get through what looks like it's going to be a pretty decent ending sequence. You know, Allison doesn't really run through the final girl gauntlet. Karen steps up, helps her out, brings Michael along on a chase, and you just know that Tommy and company are going to be at the end of this ride because, well, the last person Karen was talking to was Tommy, and remember we had that great bit of dialogue we were talking about a minute ago? So you knew what was coming, and it still felt good despite all of that. And then they have a quick nostalgia hit for all of us as Former Chief Brackett says, "Hey Michael, it's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to at least one good scare." And again, it's like, did you guys really think this sounded good when you wrote it? I get, like, this feels like first or second draft type stuff. I'm not knocking that. No writer is perfect, and you gotta kill your darlings, so to speak. But my goodness, this got all the way through production. Everybody was like, yeah, that's good. That's the right line. Let's have the nearly dead old man just talking shit to Michael Myers, and it'll just be one of another throwback. Man, people who make these movies now, and it's not just Halloween, but the people who can continue to keep these old franchises alive, that's, to use a pleasant term, they keep bastardizing these iconic movie franchises, and they seem to miss the point of what made them popular in the first place, and they think that they can simply just make references in place of just adding anything new and good to the lore. Despite the attempts to subvert expectations, the ending still falls flat to me. Honestly, I was foolishly hoping that we would see an end to the Halloween franchise with this film. I was really hoping they would put Michael to rest, but no. Turns out he gets up and demolishes that entire posse that was there, and somehow finds his way back into his home in time to kill Karen without alerting any of the paramedics or anyone that's there. So, an interesting bit there at the end. I did not expect Karen to die, so there's that. This seems to be set up for a third installment, or maybe a fourth installment, depending on how you're looking at it. But I believe the next one will focus more around Laurie, Frank, and of course Allison, since they will all be extremely motivated to kill Michael one last time. And I found it odd going in. You kept having Laurie and Frank talk about how it had to be them, and yet neither of them were present for the final showdown. So that should have been a pretty giant flag to all watching that this wasn't going to be the real end. So I thought what they were going for, however briefly, was a subversion by having Karen, of all people, be the one to finally put it to bed. But then, of course, as they've done, about every third or every fourth movie in the franchise, they have someone pull a weird mental break and start to do Michael Myers-esque things, like go up into his bedroom to look out the window. So Karen gets herself killed, and Michael is still alive. That is that. I honestly stick with what I said before about this being more of an Aliens to the Alien. This was much more focused on gore and shock factor with the kills, and with Michael Myers being some sort of superhero. There were multiple scenes of him fighting groups of people, which, not to say that that's not something that the Shape could do, but it's not really the aesthetic that these movies have been known for. So I found that to be a turn. Admittedly, to me personally, it was a bit of a disappointment. Not exactly what I was looking for in a Halloween movie. But there it is, nonetheless. Maybe they'll get it right next time. And speaking of next time, that about does it here for us today. Overall score, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 10. I've seen worse. Didn't like it. Didn't see the point of it as far as adding to a story. A lot of not much happened. They brought back a ton of characters just to kill them all off, which I'm glad that the majority of those nostalgia beats are now gone to us, because it was really ham-fisted the way that they did it, and bringing all of these people, all of these characters back at once and having them play such a major role was a bit off-putting for me personally. But essentially they just brought back some nostalgia pieces and then killed them off. That's all this movie did. It did kill one major character, but so admittedly like the most annoying one, so I guess it achieved something there. But just overall, this one fell flat. I hope Halloween doesn't turn into a Saw type situation where they start trying to churn these out on a yearly or semi-yearly basis. It's okay to have Halloweens without Halloween, is what this movie has taught me. So with any luck, the next one will be the last one, because I would love to see them let poor Mrs. Myers' baby finally get some rest.